A good evening to you all, and thank you for joining us here on Rwanda Television News tonight. We do hope you had yourself a very productive Thursday. Now here's a preview of our edition tonight. President Paul Kagame has noted that Rwanda will always prioritize its security over foreign pressure, dismissing threats of sanctions. Rwanda's Minister of Justice, who is also the country's Attorney General, Dr. Emmanuel Ugirashebuja, has delivered his final observations on the second and last day of public hearings in the case of the Democratic Republic of Congo versus the Republic of Rwanda. On the international scale, Northern Europe's Baltic Sea is bordered by nations including Germany, Russia, and Latvia. Many critical cables and pipelines cross the sea floor. We're glad to have you company tonight, coming to you straight from the heart of Africa, Kigali, and our bringing you the news tonight is Martina Abera. President Paul Kagame has noted that Rwanda will always prioritize its security over foreign pressure, dismissing threats of sanctions. He reiterated this during an exclusive interview with Jeune Afrique's François Soudan, where they discussed regional issues. We have more coming from Adam Squizera.
In an exclusive interview with Jeune Afrique, President Paul Kagame provided an in-depth analysis on the security crisis in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and shedding light on allegations against Rwanda concerning the conflict. President Paul Kagame reiterated that Rwanda will always prioritize its security over foreign pressure, dismissing threats of sanctions from some of Western countries, which falsely blame his country for the decades-long instability in Eastern DRC.
Between dealing with existential threats and dealing with threats to punish Rwanda for one thing or another, without a second thought, I'll turn my guns to the existential threat, as if the other one doesn't exist. We are not dealing with a situation that is new to us. We have faced existential threats for years. We had the worst tragedy in '94. You really come to me and start threatening threats for defending myself, threatening the sanctions because I'm defending myself, and you think I have any iota of fear for that?
The head of state pointed out that Kinshasa continues to invest in fueling the instability through ethnic persecution and the use of foreign mercenaries targeting Kinyarwanda-speaking community in the country.
They are being persecuted like that because they are being associated by the people in Rwanda. M23 said these are Tutsis, so they should go to Rwanda. But we are not, Rwanda is not the one that took them to Congo. So the issue of being sympathetic to M23 or to, I mean, actually, I wonder why wouldn't anybody be sympathetic to them? If anybody has a sense of judgment, correct judgment, of identifying the problem as it is. Would I sympathize with FDLR in Eastern Congo? Do you want me to sympathize with the militias the Wazalendo the government has put together to fight this ethnic war? Do you want me to sympathize with the Burundi that has entered this conflict on ethnic basis, that is also involved with the government in persecuting these people, or fighting them, or killing them?
President Kagame also addressed accusations against Rwanda.
The majority of the 3,000 people talked about are soldiers of FARDC and FDLR and others who are supporting them in the fight. And Wazalendo. Yes, yeah, absolutely. They are the majority. They are, in fact, over 2,000. Maybe those who died that touched civilians are around plus minus 500, I'm told. Also for various reasons that were inevitable, because where there is fighting, there is going to be all that kind of thing. And you cannot even know who was responsible for that. But for the militias, the Wazalendos and the FARDC and FDLR, I mean, it is clear they died in the fighting. So you want to hold the people or anybody, whether it is Rwanda or anybody else, accountable for having killed the enemies that were fighting them. I don't understand the logic.
President Kagame also described the ongoing conflict in DRC as an ethnic war, urging regional leaders to urgently address the crisis that has been spilling over to Rwanda. Adam Squizera, RTV News.
Staying on the matter of the DRC, Rwanda's Minister of Justice, who is also the country's Attorney General, Dr. Emmanuel Ugirashebuja, has delivered his final observations on the second and last day of public hearings in the case of the Democratic Republic of Congo versus the Republic of Rwanda. The hearings took place at the African Court on Human and People's Rights. Let's have a listen.
Mr. Vice President of this court, honorable members of this court, let me begin at the outset by profoundly appreciating how you patiently and at times tolerated us during these 2 days of our oral submission. So thank you very much. And I'm saying this with first-hand experience of what it means to be on that side of this court. Mr. Vice President, honorable justices, this case represents a troubling attempt to undermine the procedural integrity of this institution. It is also a moment of heightened responsibility. As the first state-to-state dispute brought before the court, this case carries profound implications for the procedural and substantive standards that will govern future proceedings of this nature. Any leniency or deviation from these standards risks setting a dangerous precedent, undermining the court's legitimacy and its role as a guardian of human and people's rights in Africa. As our arguments conclude, let me take you to the court's website, very beautifully created website, in a section entitled The African Court in Brief. There, the court emphasized that its authority is built upon its unwavering commitment to the core values, amongst which I quote, judicial independence and impartiality as between all litigants, end of quote. Let me also quote again, I quote again, fair and impartial application of the African Charter, end of quote, and other relevant human rights instruments. The trust that African states place in this court depends fundamentally on its adherence to these core values, as well as on insistence on rigorous compliance with its rules and established procedural norms. This trust is not a given. It's normally earned and maintained by ensuring that all parties are held to the same exact standards, regardless of their motivations or the nature of their claims, and by applying the law as it is and stands today, not as a party may wish it to be. As with other courts, the integrity of this court's process is what ensures its continued relevance and authority in resolution of disputes across the continent. Hence, to compromise on these principles would risk not only the erosion of that trust, but also the diminution of the court's stature within the broader framework of international justice. This cannot be allowed to stand. African states, peoples, and individuals deserve nothing less than the highest standards of international justice, upheld with fairness, rigor, and also integrity. The respondent has, in the last 2 days, demonstrated that this application is not merely procedurally defective, but also substantively baseless. It fails to meet the most fundamental requirements of jurisdiction and admissibility, representing a clear disregard for the foundational principles of international adjudication. The applicant's actions constitute an orchestrated misuse of these court's mechanisms, evidenced by its procedural irregularities, failure to exhaust local remedies, and reliance on duplicative claims filed before another forum. Such conduct not only undermines the integrity of this proceeding, but also risks setting a precedent that encourages frivolous and at times abusive litigation practices within this institution. In other words, the applicant's case is, at its core, a poorly constructed attempt to overwhelm this court with procedural irregularities and excessive claims in the hope that something may stick. This honorable court has the duty and indeed the opportunity to reaffirm its commitment to rigorous procedural standards and the rule of law. We respectfully urge this court to dismiss this application in its entirety and to do so decisively, leaving no room for doubt that such tactics will find no quarter within these chambers. Finally, we respectfully remind the court as it retires to consider these preliminary objections that the court is considered to be bound by the application as it was filed, as matters stood as at 11th August 2023. It is telling in its oral submissions the applicant has heavily relied on matters which are alleged to have arisen since and after 11th August 2023. Any such subsequent matters are extraneous for the purposes of the court and should not, we submit, form part of its conclusion. Mr. Vice President, Honorable Justices, the Republic of Rwanda respectfully requests the court to adjudge and declare that A, the court has no jurisdiction to entertain the DRC's application because the matters contained therein fall outside the material and territorial jurisdiction of the court, and B, alternatively, and I stress the word alternatively, that the application is inadmissible for the following reasons. First, the application is incompatible with the Constitutive Act of the African Union. Second, the application is based primarily on news disseminated through the mass media. 3, the applicant has failed to exhaust local remedies. 4, the application deals with issues that have already been settled. 5, the applicant has failed to fulfill mandatory procedural conditions. And then finally, 6, the application is an abuse of process. Thank you very much for entertaining us today. Thank you.
Let us now inform you that President Paul Kagame has received the World Bank's country director for Rwanda, Kenya, Somalia, and Uganda, Kimiao Fan, for discussions on joint development projects between Rwanda and the World Bank across key sectors in infrastructure, skills development, and more. Rwanda became a member of the World Bank in 1963, and since then, the bank has provided billions of dollars in support of different development programs in the country, including human capital, infrastructure, agriculture, resilience, and private sector development. President Paul Kagame also received a delegation from the Federation of Saudi Chambers of Commerce, led by Chairman Hassan Al-Huwazi. The delegation, which consists of over 30 business leaders in various sectors, is in Rwanda to explore investment opportunities and build partnerships between the Rwandan and Kingdom of Saudi Arabia private sectors. Rwanda and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have been enjoying good cooperation in areas of health, education, energy, and infrastructure development. Other areas of shared business opportunities exist in technology, financial sector, tourism development, trade and investment, among others. Saudi Arabian investors visiting Rwanda have expressed appreciation for the investment opportunities presented to them, stating that they are ready to invest in the country. Walid Madwar, a businessman and investor from Saudi Arabia, is among the delegation of traders and investors who have traveled to Rwanda to explore investment opportunities. He mentioned that he came to assess the possibility of establishing another business after previously launching one here in Rwanda back in 2013, and praised the ease of doing business in Rwanda, particularly when he set up his water distribution company in Kigali.
Back in 2015 till 18, I've been here over 33 times. When we came here, first thing I would look for what? Safety. And it was a very, very safe place. I looked at the business environment, transparency. So it was very high transparent country in terms of regulation, in terms of PPP framework, in terms of PPP policy, in terms of transparency in procurement process. There is no discrimination. Business with anybody is open, very open, equally. So this is encourage us, and I'm here today, this week, to look for the second projects in Rwanda.
According to the data from the Rwanda Development Board, in the past 10 years, 6 Saudi Arabian companies have invested over $79 million in Rwanda. This investment is expected to create jobs for approximately 167 people. Statistics from Comtrade, an international trade analysis organization, indicate that in 2023, Rwanda exported goods mainly coffee worth over $2 million to Saudi Arabia. On the other hand, Saudi Arabia exported various goods to Rwanda valued at over $4 million. Walid Hamad, the Secretary General of the Saudi Chamber of Commerce, has stated that they are impressed by the investment opportunities they found here in Rwanda.
What you're doing is really remarkable. First, let me say that we have been very impressed ever since we landed here about the beautiful country. The infrastructure, the organization. Thank you. This is really a well-deserved acknowledgement, to tell you the truth. We have been very impressed ever since we arrived here. I think this really is a very, very strong message for investors to tell them that you are serious and you mean business, and that they can have the confidence to come and invest here. And of course, it's not just what we see with our eyes. It is what the fact says about what you mentioned, about the ranking and the ranking that you have in the benchmarks of ease of doing business. So I think this really sends a very positive message for all of us.
The Saudi investors also visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial at Gisozi, paying tribute to the victims buried there. They commended Rwandans for not being held back by their tragic past, but instead striving to build their country at an impressive pace, which visitors admire. This delegation of over 30 investors arrived in Rwanda from Kenya and Tanzania, where they had been exploring investment opportunities in those countries as well. Moving ahead, the National Bank of Rwanda is reporting that Rwanda's economy is continuing to rise significantly in the first 3 quarters of 2024, with an average increase of 9.2%. The National Bank of Rwanda is stating that based on current global trends, Rwanda's economy is expected to keep growing. In a press briefing, the governor of the National Bank of Rwanda is explaining that this high-level growth is mainly coming from the industrial and service sectors, along with agriculture, which is performing well despite challenges from climate change.
As you heard, publication by the Institute of Statistics, the first 3 quarters of this year, the economic growth was strong, at an average of 9.2 so far for the first 3 quarters of this year. This was mainly driven by continued growth in services and industry mainly construction, manufacturing, but also sea mining picking up. Again, this year, last year we had stronger agricultural growth, especially season A. That contributed to the higher economic growth we saw in the first 3 quarters. When you look at the composite index, still on that slide, when you look at the composite index of economic activity that we track as a central bank, it indicates that fourth quarter growth remains strong. This is a 15.7% of the composite index, not the actual growth. The actual growth should be announced by the Institute of Statistics. Normally it happens in March, but we expect this to remain strong, and most likely the original projection of 8.3 growth for 2024 will be exceeded.
Another noticeable trend is that exports have increased by 15.8%, leading to a reduction in the trade gap between Rwanda's exports and imports.
The trade or external sector, we see improvement of our numbers in fourth quarter of 2024. Increased export at 15.8%, still growth in imports, though much lower than what we experienced in exports, and this had a positive impact on the trade deficit that was reduced by 3.7% in the fourth quarter. But overall, for the year January-December 2024, growth for exports were at 6.9%, imports at 5.8%. But as I always say, because the base of imports is much bigger, we saw our trade deficit widening by 5.2%.
Another point the National Bank of Rwanda is highlighting is that the reduction in pressure on the foreign exchange market between Rwanda and francs and the US dollar is helping stabilize Rwanda's economy.
So this had an impact on our exchange markets, where we saw the flour depreciating by 9.42 in 2024. This is much lower than the 18.05 we registered in 2023, but still higher than our normal average of around 5%.
The National Bank of Rwanda is also sharing that its forecasts show the pace of inflation will remain within target limits, reaching around 6.5% in 2025 before decreasing to 4.1% by 2026. Based on these projections, the National Bank of Rwanda's Monetary Policy Committee is deciding to keep the key interest rate at 6.5%. Moving ahead, defense experts from the East African Community member countries are meeting in Rwanda to develop a roadmap for establishment of online repository of all documents used in conferences and exercise. Enora Gladys has more.
During this two-day conference, defense experts emphasized the importance for a technological system to store strategic and operational documents from the East African Community defense meetings and exercises.
The system is important in several aspects. One of them, it will speed up the implementation of the sectoral council decision. So by speeding up the decision of the sectoral council, we are also speed up the integration agenda. So this is the main purpose of implementing that system, but particularly regarding the meetings and the decisions. But the ultimate goal is to push to speed up the integration agenda.
Some of the member countries of the East African Community, including Burundi and the Democratic Republic of Congo, did not attend this conference. Colonel Maurice Maine, who is the chairperson of this group of defense experts in the East African Community Organization, stated that all member countries, including those that did not attend, will comply with the resolutions that will result from this conference.
This is a collective responsibility. And those who have not sent, what will come up with this working group today's and tomorrow's meeting will be disseminated to all of them. And because we are not coming up with a timeline for one country, it's a collective, uniform timeline for the East African community. So even if those have not come, they will be able to take the document and then adopt it and implement those timelines. But eventually, there's a point of convergence where all of us will be able to converge and be able to implement what the community will have adopted. Because I know a resolution, when you have a resolution, this resolution is binding, but it's not that it's difficult for any member state to implement.
The key objectives of this meeting is to establish governance structures and workflows to capture, review, approve, and disseminate information effectively and promote secure information sharing and collaboration among the East African Community partner states' armed forces. Enra Gladys, RwandaTV News.
The Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom, is praising Rwanda for the efforts the country is making in the fight against non-communicable diseases. He is urging people worldwide to unite in combating the increasing number of individuals suffering from these diseases. This message was conveyed to the attendees of the Global NCD Alliance Forum, which is currently taking place in Rwanda. In the international conference focusing on non-communicable diseases, Priska Githuka from Kenya, who has personally battled several chronic diseases, including breast cancer, and lost a sibling and a parent to these diseases, shared the significant challenges faced by individuals with NCDs.
One of the challenges that we are facing is unavailability of drugs. So you go to cancer centers within the countries, and you fail to get even chemotherapy drugs. I can imagine some of you who do not live in the south like us. If you have cancer, for example, and you're prescribed for chemotherapy, you know for sure that all you need to do is go for your treatment, isn't it? But then, for us in Africa, what happens? You may be told you need to do 8 chemotherapy, but you're not sure when you're going to complete the chemotherapy because the drugs are not there. And patients, including in referral hospitals, very high-level hospitals, they are being referred to go and buy drugs from outside. And you ask yourself, patients who are very ignorant, how will they be able to go out there and buy essential drugs like chemotherapy drugs? Drugs like letrozole are also missing in facilities. Level 6 facilities, which are research referral facilities, and a patient is being told, go and buy there.
The Ministry of Health is reporting that nearly 60% of deaths in Rwanda are caused by non-communicable diseases. The Director General of WHO, Dr. Tedros Adhanom, is calling for a renewed global effort to tackle non-communicable diseases.
Every year, NCDs, including cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and chronic respiratory disease, kill 17 million people under the age of 70, 1 every 2 seconds. 85% of these premature deaths are in low and middle income countries. We have the power to change this narrative. Many of these deaths can be prevented by addressing their root cause, including tobacco and alcohol use, unhealthy diets, physical inactivity, and air pollution. Many African countries, like Rwanda, are already taking action. Driving progress requires sustained political commitment, relentless advocacy, sustainable financing, and a commitment to equity and social participation.
This is the 4th edition of the conference on NCDs, and it is lasting for 3 days. Over 700 participants from 69 countries across the globe are attending. This event is happening at a time when 70% of global deaths are attributed to non-communicable diseases.
Alo, waramutse utashiri wanjye.
Utekereza ko guhora wizigamiye n'umushu aribyo birenze? Natwe ariko tubibona. Ubona nta cyakurutira kugaragaza impano yawe. Niko bimeze.
So guys, uyu munsi tugiye kuganira ku gaseke. Agaseke njye gafite byinshi. Kamari, ese wowe kakumariye iki? Manudi. Halo Manudi, niba iki uri kunkura mu kazi? Rero mabusha, byahiye kandi noneho bimeze neza cyane. Umva ukuntu biri no guhumura. ako Manudi urumva nakumva ko ibyo bihumura koko
ubona nacyakutura umwuga wawe erega natwe niko tubibona dushyigikiye buri kimwe agaciro mu buzima bwawe na irekure nshya buri wese arahishiwe wikwisondeka kanda akanyenyeri 140 urwego uhitemo agaseke kawe ka packs zo guhamagara cyangwa akanyenyeri 345 urwego uhitemo bando za internet uryoherwe n'umuvuduko wa 4G.
Welcome back and thank you for keeping it on RTV News. And heading over to other matters elsewhere, Northern Europe's Baltic Sea is bordered by nations including Germany, Russia and Latvia. Many critical cables and pipelines cross the seafloor. But with tensions rising in the region, NATO is looking for ways to ensure that entire infrastructure stays safe. VOA has the details.
The Baltic Sea has seen a number of incidents in recent years involving damage to energy and communications lines on the seafloor. Ships linked to China and Russia have come under suspicion.
In the past 15 months, 11 cables have been damaged, which has led to outages. We obviously need to take that into account. We have increased our presence there, as well as the presence of our NATO partners.
There's no definitive proof that the damage is intentional, but some Baltic military officials are concerned so many incidents suggest sabotage.
In the last 3 months, we have anchors falling down on accident a little too often. Of course, such things do happen, but it's unlikely to happen so often in one small area.
On land, scientists are thinking about how to better protect strategic underwater infrastructure. Staff at the NATO Center for Maritime Research and Experimentation, or CMRE, in Italy say they're getting better at tracking shipping in the region.
These algorithms that the center has been developed, oftentimes using AI, have been able to be used for monitoring ship traffic, especially white shipping, so civilian traffic on various locations of the globe, but it turns out that it works very well.
Even if the recent events are accidental, NATO isn't prepared for sabotage in the Baltic Sea, according to former Latvian Minister of Defense Artis Pabriks.
We must anticipate and establish which ships could threaten us. It's a job for intelligence services.
In late January, NATO promised to deploy frigates, aircraft, and naval drones to help protect critical infrastructure in the area. For Vladislav Sandrievs in Riga, Latvia, Anna Rice, VOA News.
And that VOA story marks the end of our bulletin. On behalf of the news production team as well as the technical team, we would like to thank you for sticking with us on RTV News. I who brought you the news is Martina Abera, and up until next time, stay safe and have a good night.
turabasuhuje kandi tubahaye ikaze ku makuru